Hello and welcome to Astro Weird. On this channel, we're looking at serial killers from the astrological point of view. We're combining astrology and criminal profiling to try to understand what natal charts can tell us about these offenders. We'll be creating astrological criminal profiles to try to find similarities and differences in the astrological makeup of these killers to better understand criminal behavior in general. In order for someone to be classified as a serial killer, they must have killed at least 3 victims on separate occasions, which may be days, weeks, months, or even years apart. Some killers on our list have less than 3 confirmed victims, but more than 3 suspected victims, and they will also be included. Our list includes serial killers from around the globe who were born in the 19th and 20th centuries and whose date of birth data is available. While we're focusing on finding what made them tick from the astrological point of view, we must never forget their victims, victim families' pain, and the general death and destruction they have left behind. Before we start the investigation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, turn on that notification bell so you never miss out on new videos. Let us begin our investigation. There are 85 Gemini serial killers who come from all around the world. They're from Australia, Belarus, Canada, Colombia, Czechia, Estonia, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sweden, Thailand, Turkey, UK, and the USA. Out of the 85 Gemini serial killers, 76 are male and 9 are female. 3 female killers were born in the 19th century and 6 in the 20th century. On the other hand, 5 male killers were born in the 19th and 71 in the 20th century. It is to be expected that there are more serial killers in the 20th century than in the 19th century. However, it's not because people were better or less violent back then. On the contrary, there is far less violence now than in the previous centuries, despite what people may want to believe. In the 19th century, some behavior that we would consider violent wasn't classified as such and was a quite common occurrence, for example, child labor and such. Another thing to have in mind is that the investigative and forensic methods were not yet advanced enough to successfully apprehend the offenders. As usual, the decade when most serial killers were born is the 50s. A total of 23 Gemini serial killers were born then, including the infamous David Berkowitz. The decades that usually have the highest number of serial killer births are the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. The most prolific Gemini female serial killer is Irina Gaidamachuk from Russia, who was born on May the 22nd, 1972. She became addicted to alcohol at young age. In the early 90s, she met her husband Yuri, and the two had 2 children together. However, her drinking problem was so extreme that Yuri reportedly would refuse to provide her with money out of fear that she would spend it on the alcohol. Despite the fact that most women choose non-violent killing methods, such as poisoning, Gaidamachuk used axe or hammer to kill her victims. She would pretend she was a social worker to gain access to elderly women's homes. She would rob them, kill them, and spend the money on the booze. She killed a total of 17 elderly women. The second most prolific Gemini female serial killer is Sarah Jane Robinson from USA, who was born on May the 26th, 1836. Sarah Jane, known as the Boston Borgia, poisoned her family members as well as other people between 1881 and 1886. Several members of the Robinson family passed away from mysterious illnesses, all with similar symptoms such as excruciating stomach pain and vomiting. All of the deceased, except for one, had life insurance policies through United Order of Pilgrim Fathers. She killed between 8 and 11 people with the help of her accomplices, Thomas R. Smith and Dr. Charles C. Beers. The most prolific Gemini male serial killer is Samuel Little, aka the Choke and Stroke Killer, from USA, who was born on June 7, 1940. He said that as a child, he began having sexual fantasies about strangling women. He collected true crime magazines depicting women being choked. He killed between 60 and 93 victims. The second most prolific Gemini male serial killer is Robert Lee Yates, aka the Spokane serial killer or the grocery bag killer, from USA, who was born on May the 27th, 1952. He killed between 16 and 18 plus women, all sex workers who he would solicit for sex, then kill them and dump their bodies in rural areas. All of his victims died of gunshot wounds to the head. On one occasion, Yates killed a woman named Melody Murfin, whose body was buried just outside of the bedroom window of Yates' family home. The most infamous Gemini serial killers are Jeffrey Dahmer, aka the Milwaukee Cannibal, David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam, Peter Sutcliffe, aka the Yorkshire Ripper, and the already mentioned Robert Lee Yates, aka the Spokane serial killer or the grocery bag killer. Dahmer, Berkowitz, and Sutcliffe are among the most infamous serial killers of all times, regardless of their zodiac sign. It's interesting that all three are Geminis. We've seen that among Aries and Taurus serial killers, there is one serial killer each that can be considered ultra infamous. To check who they are, please visit the links in the description box. However, the sign of Gemini is not the only one that has multiple ultra-infamous serial killers, which is something you'll find out in subsequent videos. Jeffrey Dahmer, aka the Milwaukee Cannibal, was born on May the 21st, 1960, in the USA. He killed and dismembered 17 young men and boys. Many of his later murders involved necrophilia, cannibalism, and the permanent preservation of body parts, typically all or part of the skeleton. He had a pretty normal childhood, which adds to the complexity of understanding his actions. He was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and psychotic disorder. On February 2, 1992, he was sentenced to 15 terms of life imprisonment. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution, Wisconsin. David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam, was born on June 1st, 1953, in the USA. Using a revolver, he killed 6 people and wounded 7 others. Berkowitz eluded the biggest police manhunt in the city's history while leaving letters that mocked the police and promised further crimes, which were highly publicized by the press. During questioning, Berkowitz claimed that the Sam mentioned in the first letter was his former neighbor, Sam Carr, and that Harvey, Carr's black Labrador, was possessed by an ancient demon which commanded Berkowitz to kill people. In an interview with Johnny Douglas, the FBI agent who coined the term serial killer in the late 70s, Berkowitz confessed that he invented that story and that his killings were, in fact, psychosexual in nature. This scene was recreated in the famous Netflix TV show Mindhunter, which is based on Douglas's book of the same name. Peter Sutcliffe, aka the Yorkshire Ripper, was born on June 2, 1946, in the UK. The serial killer nickname, the Yorkshire Ripper, is a clear allusion to Jack the Ripper. He killed 13 women and attempted to kill 7 others. Sutcliffe initially attacked women and girls in residential areas, but shifted his focus to red light districts because he was attracted to the vulnerability of sex workers. Similar to Berkowitz, Sutcliffe claimed that the voice of God, in this case it wasn't the neighbor's dog, had sent him on a mission to kill prostitutes. The search for Sutcliffe was one of the largest and most expensive manhunts in British history. Sutcliffe died from diabetes-related complications in hospital while in prison custody on November 13, 2020, at the age of 74. Here is an interesting data. There are serial killers who were born on the same day of the same year, yet who have never met each other and have nothing to do with one another except for the fact that they are serial killers. We call them astrological twins or astro twins. There are 3 such set of astro twins among Gemini Sun serial killers, more so than Aries and Taurus serial killers. To learn about Aries and Taurus serial killers, please check the links in the description box. By seniority, the first Astro twins are Archibald Hall and William MacDonald, both from the UK, who were born on June 17, 1924. Archibald Hall is known as the Killer Butler or the Monster Butler because he committed crimes while working in service to the British aristocracy. His criminal career as a thief started at the age of 15. While serving his first jail sentence, he studied antiques and learned the etiquette of the aristocracy, as well as taking elocution lessons to soften his Scottish accent. He killed a total of 5 people. William MacDonald, while born in the UK, committed his crimes in Australia and became known as the Sydney Mutilator. He used to select his male victims at random, lure them into a dark place, violently punch and stab them with a long-bladed knife dozens of times about the head and neck, and finally sever their genitals. Interestingly, he killed 5 people, the same number of victims as his Astro twin, Archibald Hall. The next set of Astro twins is comprised of Richard Rogers from USA and Ryuichi Tsukamoto from Japan, who were born on June 16, 1950. Richard Rogers, aka the Last Call Killer, murdered and dismembered at least 2 gay and bisexual men between 1992 and 1993. He would lure drunk men from piano bars in Manhattan, murdering and dismembering them at an unknown location, and dumping their bodies in garbage bags along highways in New Jersey. Rogers wasn't arrested until 2001, when a new forensic technique was used to uncover his fingerprints from the bags he used to wrap his victims' body parts in. He killed between 2 and more than 7 victims. Ryuichi Tsukamoto killed 3 women as a teenager. His first victim was a pregnant 24-year-old housewife. The second one was a 28-year-old woman who was in her house with her 3-month-old baby. He killed the mother but spared the baby. The third victim was a 25-year-old woman. In all 3 cases, Tsukamoto would also steal money from the houses. Tsukamoto was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment in 1972, but is believed to have been paroled in the late 80s. The last set of Astro twins consists of Adelaide Phyllis from Turkey and Alexei Vygovsky from Russia. They were born on June 6, 1986, which also makes them the youngest born Gemini serial killers. There are no Gemini killers who were born in the 90s. Adelaide Phyllis was born to an officer of the Turkish Air Force. He killed at least 3 people, 1 man and 2 women, and is a suspect in the disappearance of a third woman. He was a fugitive for more than 2 years, but was eventually captured in June 2016. Alexei Vygovsky, also known as the station poisoner, poisoned 32 people from 2006 to 2009 in the Moscow metro stations in order to rob them, resulting in 17 fatalities. His mother was a police investigator. Vygovsky was a habitual thief and would frequently steal money from his parents. As he progressed in his career as a thief, he realized that he would have to incapacitate his victims to prevent them from retaliating. This is why he started using a flask containing a mixture of cognac and a sleeping medicine and offer it to the drunk subway passengers. When they were incapacitated, he would rob them and leave the crime scene without checking if they had died or not. As you can see, evil is not restricted to only one culture, one country, or one part of the world. There is evil in every country and every culture, and here we are trying to analyze it so that we can detect it and prevent it in the future. Now let's start with the astrological statistics. In this video, we'll be focusing on the luminaries, that is, the Sun and the Moon signs, and personal planets, that is, Mercury, Venus, and Mars signs. The rest of the planets, including some asteroids, most notably Chiron, will be taken into account when we do videos on major aspects. Bear in mind that ascendant data is rarely available and will not be included, which also means that we won't be looking at the houses. We'll start with the moon, whose importance and influence on our daily lives is undisputed. There are many astrologers who see the moon as more important than the sun, as it governs our emotions, intuition, instincts, emotional safety, and emotional responses. One important thing to have in mind: moon changes sign every 2.5 days approximately. Since we don't know the exact time of birth for the majority of the serial killers, there will be those whose moon sign may be in one of the 2 neighboring signs. Further analysis in subsequent videos will give us a better understanding of which of the two moon signs is more likely to be correct than the other based on the characteristics of the crimes committed. Most Gemini Sun serial killers also have their moon in Aries and moon in Gemini, 6 each. Sun in Gemini and moon in Aries form a sextile, which is a very good aspect. It means that the energies of the two signs can be called upon when needed, though they're not fully integrated as it happens with trine. The killers with their sun in Gemini and their moon in Aries are talkative people, usually fun to be around, but they do have an aggressive and violent streak that is mostly displayed in close relationships. Jeffrey Dahmer is one such Gemini, as he has his moon in Aries. Gemini Sun and Gemini Moon form a conjunction, which basically means that the two planets are in the same sign. This can be good or bad depending on the person or the situation, because too much of the same thing can sometimes be a problem. Geminis are generally speaking reckless, scattered, and flaky. Though they're intelligent and witty, they lack patience and get bored easily. Next, there are 5 Virgo, 5 Cancer, and 5 Capricorn moons. Gemini Sun and Virgo moon form a square, which is the most difficult aspect to have between two planets. Having a square means that the energies of those two planets are always clashing with one another, regardless of the signs in question and regardless of whether the person is a criminal or a law-abiding citizen. A square between the sun and the moon always creates inner tension because the wants and the needs, the character and the personality are always clashing with one another. A Gemini killer with their moon in Virgo is someone who is fun to be around, who appears helpful, but who carries a lot of anger and resentment inside that they desperately want to conceal in front of people they're not close to. They have a basic lack of awareness on how their actions affect people and can rationalize the pain they inflict on others as being reasonable. Cancer moon is gentle but also fearful. It can be whiny and overly sensitive. In combination with a Gemini sun, it creates a person who appears more confident than they really are. This can make these killers secretly envious of other people's success. For good measure, Peter Sutcliffe and Robert Lee Yates are both Geminis with the moon in Cancer. Capricorn moon is one of the two difficult positions of the moon. The other one is Scorpio. It is said that the Capricorn moon is in exile, which means that it's difficult for the moon to reach its full potential when in this sign. Moon and Capricorn people, regardless of their sun sign, are cold and calculated, as they don't seem to understand emotions very well, either their own or those of other people, and would rather pretend emotions didn't exist. Combined with Gemini Sun, it creates a person who is only preoccupied with the intellectual side of life and completely forgets that emotions exist. David Berkowitz has his moon in Capricorn. Next, there are 4 Libra moons. Libra moon is notoriously indecisive. It's very important for them to always have someone by their side, even if they don't have good relationship with them. They are everybody's friend, or at least appear to be so in person, but have a tendency to gossip behind people's backs. Add to that the Gemini sun, and this trait gets amplified. On that note, these killers are talkative and outgoing and may appear more benign than they actually are, which is something they could use to their advantage. Sarah Jane Robinson is one such Gemini with the moon in Libra. Further down the line, there are 3 Sagittarius, 3 Aquarius, and 3 Pisces moons. Gemini and Sagittarius form an opposition. This is another difficult aspect. Similar to the square, when sun and moon are in opposition, it creates inner tension. The difference is that with square, that tension is displayed more often outwardly, while with the opposition, it is displayed more often inwardly. A Gemini with the moon in Sagittarius is opinionated and often see other people as intellectually inferior to them, though they may not show it. Aquarius moon is in trine with Gemini sun. Though this is the best aspect to have, these two signs combined are not without their fair share of problems. Granted, the person doesn't feel the tension between their wants, represented by the sun, and their needs, represented by the moon. as those two are in harmony. However, Aquarius moon on its own is emotionless and doesn't have much true empathy. Combined with Gemini Sun, it creates a person who gets bored more easily than other Geminis and who can, because of that, become a thrill seeker. Pisces moon, like the moon in Virgo, forms a square with the Gemini sun. It does create a tension within the person, as all squares do, but it creates a different type of tension compared to the Gemini sun Virgo moon combination. Pisces moon is sensitive and devoid of a good sense of reality. They can also be manipulative and resort to emotional manipulation. Finally, there are two Taurus, two Leo, and two Scorpio moons. Taurus moon is very self-oriented. They are the original selfish people, but not in a traditional sense. They're truly preoccupied with their own well-being and with what they want and makes them feel good. Though they may care about others, they always put themselves first. However, they may not see it like that. A Gemini sun with a Taurus moon is someone who is friendly and who can fit into any group, provided there is something in it for them. They don't dwell on their mistakes because they don't think they make mistakes. They can also be stubborn and unwilling to change. Leo moon is proud and thinks they are the best. A Gemini sun killer with a Leo moon thinks they are better and more intelligent than others, and they can easily outsmart everyone, including the police. Scorpio moon is another of the most difficult moon positions. It is dark and intense, obsessive and paranoid. A Gemini sun with the moon in Scorpio is someone who looks like they don't have a care in the world, but there is a brooding intensity lurking beneath the surface. They're one of the least outgoing Geminis, unless other planetary aspects say different. If you paid attention, we said that there are 85 Taurus serial killers. However, we've only listed 46 killers' moon signs. 39 killers seem to be unaccounted for. Those are the killers who were born on the days when moon changed from one sign to another, and they will be listed separately. Therefore, there are 7 Gemini Cancer, 6 Taurus, Gemini, 5 Leo, Virgo, 5 Sagittarius, Capricorn, and 5 Aquarius Pisces killers. Samuel Little, Richard Rogers, and Ryuichi Tsukamoto have Gemini Cancer. Atalay Phillies and Alexei Vygovsky belong to the Taurus Gemini moon group, and Archibald Hall and William MacDonald to the Sagittarius Capricorn. Next, there are 3 Aries Taurus, 2 Libra Scorpio, 2 Pisces Aries, 1 Cancer Leo, 1 Virgo Libra, 1 Scorpio Sagittarius, and 1 Capricorn Aquarius. Irina Gaidamachuk was born on the day when the moon transitioned from Virgo to Libra. Further analysis of the individual cases and the comparison to the known moon signs will tell us which of the 2 signs is more likely to be correct. This might, of course, alter existing statistics of serial killer moon signs, but in subsequent videos, we'll see how much and in what direction. The next planet we're going to analyze is Mercury. Mercury is important to understand as it governs how we think and how we communicate with others. Mercury can be only in 3 signs: the sun sign of the native, 1 previous, and 1 subsequent sign. In the case of Gemini natives, it can be in Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. There are 39 Gemini, 25 Taurus, and 21 Cancer Mercuries. In the case of the previous 2 sun signs, Aries and Taurus, we usually had 2 signs that had far greater number of killers than the 3rd sign. In the case of Gemini Sun, these numbers are far more balanced. Gemini Mercury is talkative and usually fun to be around. However, they may talk too much, which can be off-putting for some people. They're witty and intelligent, but can get lost in details and their crazy stories. Paradoxically, even though they are good at noticing details, they themselves may overlook them when committing crimes because they are brain-scattered and reckless. Jeffrey Dahmer, Peter Sutcliffe, Archibald Hall, William MacDonald, Richard Rogers, Ryuichi Tsukamoto, David Berkowitz, and Sarah Jane Robinson all have their Mercuries in Gemini. Taurus Mercury is slower in their thinking process because they don't like change, don't like new ideas, and prefer to stick to the well-threaded paths. Robert Lee Yates and Irina Gaidamachuk are the ones with their Mercuries in Taurus. Cancer Mercuries are generally good and empathetic listeners. However, they can appear mild-mannered and docile to people, which is something they can use to their advantage. Samuel Little, Adelaide Phyllis, and Alexei Vygotsky have their Mercuries in Cancer. The next planet we're going to analyze is Venus. It is a very important planet, especially for our study. Venus is the planet of beauty, aesthetics, charm, and above all, relationships. In a male's chart, it indicates what kind of woman the native finds attractive, while in the female's chart, it tells how the woman flirts. In both male and female charts, Venus shows what we want out of a relationship and how we behave in a relationship. Since majority of the cases we're investigating are of psychosexual nature, the position of Venus is very important. This is especially true for male killers because their crimes are usually driven by sexual desires. Similar to Mercury, Venus can be only in 5 signs: the sun sign of the native, 2 previous and 2 subsequent signs. In the case of Gemini Sun, Venus can be in Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and Leo. There are 41 Cancer Venus, 22 Taurus, 11 Aries, 7 Gemini, and 4 Leo Venuses. Aries Venus is bold and assertive. It doesn't take no for an answer. A male killer likes people who embody the attributes of an Aries, assertive and courageous, which may create a masochistic streak. David Berkowitz is one of the mentioned Gemini serial killers who has his Venus in Aries. Taurus Venus is sensual and hedonistic. They love the good life, and even though they love to pamper themselves, having the Gemini Sun may inhibit that trait, as Geminis are multitaskers and are not adept at taking it slow and relaxing. Robert Lee Yates, Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Rogers, and Ryuichi Tsukamoto all have this Venus. Gemini Venus is all about having fun. They're flirty but also flaky and inconsistent. They get easily bored in romantic relationships and constantly look for something and someone better. None of the mentioned Gemini serial killers have this Venus sign. Cancer Venus is romantic but also scared and fearful. They want love, but they don't know how to get it. If they don't get the love they want, they may become resentful, thinking that the world is against them. The killers who have Venus in Cancer are Samuel Little, Archibald Hall, William MacDonald, Peter Sutcliffe, Adelaide Phyllis, Alexei Vygotsky, Irina Gaidamachuk, and Sarah Jane Robinson. Leo Venus is flashy and likes to be noticed. They think they deserve the best and feel that they were born to live in luxury, even though their financial status doesn't correspond with that. They may feel an almost subconscious envy towards people who they perceive as living better off than them. The last planet we'll be analyzing in this video is Mars. Mars is a very important planet, not just generally speaking, but for our astrological profiling. It deals with aggression, how we act and react to the world, the pain, and how we go about doing stuff. In a male's chart, it shows how he flirts. In the female's chart, it shows what kind of man she's attracted to. That isn't to say that when flirting, a man will not employ some of his Venus sign, and the woman will not employ some of her Mars sign, as that happens often, and these 2 planets, Venus and Mars, are the ones most closely looked at when dealing with romantic relationships. In both charts, it is also related to sexuality. The highest number belongs to Gemini Mars, 16 of them. This is an intellectually active Mars who can be argumentative. They love to be on top of the intellectual game, outwitting their opponents, but may easily get distracted and/or change their mind. Out of the mentioned Gemini serial killers in this video, David Berkowitz is the one who has this Mars. As you remember, he got his notoriety precisely because he taunted police with his letters. Next, there are 11 Virgo Mars killers. Virgo Mars is hardworking and meticulous, but they can also get easily overwhelmed if they don't get their emotions in check, which is something they can't do. There are 9 Aries and 9 Taurus Marses. Mars in Aries is assertive and pushy. They want what they want, and they want it now. They won't stop at nothing to get what they want. When they have a clear idea in their mind of what they want to do or achieve, they won't take into account other people's feelings, emotions, or pain. When it comes to getting what they want, other people simply don't exist. It's only them and their goals. Jeffrey Dahmer and Sarah Jane Robinson have this Mars sign. Taurus Mars is stubborn and lazy. If there's nothing in it for them, they won't bother. However, they can get fixated on something. They will push to get it as long as they feel they are going to gain something from it, and that the process is not too difficult, time-consuming, or arduous. Next, there are 7 Cancer and 7 Leo Mars killers. When Mars is in Cancer, it is said that it is in its fall. This is a very difficult position for the Mars, as it is the planet of action and assertiveness. Remember that Mars is the Roman god of war, while the sign of Cancer is anything but that. Mars in Cancer is passive-aggressive and manipulative. They appear docile and kind, but can attack you when you least expect it. Irina Gaidamatchuk and Samuel Little are the serial killers mentioned in this video that have this Mars. Mars in Leo is warm and energetic, but it's also very proud and stubborn. It likes to be praised for their actions, and if it doesn't happen, they can get resentful. Peter Sutcliffe has Mars in Leo. Next on the list, there are 6 Capricorn and 6 Pisces Mars killers. Capricorn Mars is hardworking and meticulous and doesn't leave anything to chance. They don't get easily distracted, and the serial killers with this Mars are more likely to have detailed plans. The killers who have Mars in Capricorn are Alexei Vygovsky, Atalay Phillies. Remember that the Astro twins will have planets in the same sign because they were born on the same day. In the case they were born on the day the moon changed signs, further analysis will show if they have the same moon sign or not. Pisces Mars is dreamy and lives in their fantasy worlds. They're aggressive and are not openly confrontational, which is why they may choose victims who they can easily subdue. Victims who are smaller, younger, or somehow already unable to properly defend themselves. No serial killers mentioned have this Mars. Finally, there are 5 Aquarius, 4 Sagittarius, 3 Libra, and 2 Scorpio Mars killers. Aquarius Mars is active and likes odd things. They think others are less intelligent or able than them, which can lead to the false sense of superiority. William MacDonald and Archibald have this Mars. Sagittarius Mars is adventurous. They are somewhat naive and have a childlike outlook in life. In the case of serial killers, it means that they are more impulsive than rational and methodical. Libra Mars is another of the difficult Mars positions. As we've said, Mars is all about action and assertiveness. However, the sign of Libra is indecisive. They are not fearful like a Mars in Cancer, but their inability to make quick decisions, or to make decisions at all, is something that can be overwhelming for them. Richard Rogers and Ryuichi Tsukamoto have Mars in Libra. If you watched videos on Aries and Taurus serial killers, you might have noticed that Scorpio Mars is at the bottom of those lists as well. Scorpio Mars is destructive, but even more so, they are self-destructive. This Mars is dark and can be very violent. The serial killer with this Mars is Robert Lee Yates. What have we learned so far? Gemini serial killers can be reckless, but they love a good cat-and-mouse game, whether with their victims or with the police and the general public. They're social chameleons, so they may adapt well to their surroundings and live double lives. That's all for today. See you in the next video, where we'll be discussing Cancer serial killers. Until next time.